All right, that's NSFAS spokesperson Ishmael Nisi. Now, the spokesperson of the South African Union of Students, Asive Dlanjwa, joins us now for their stance on this issue. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Asive. To put things into perspective, can you please explain to us your relationship with the department, with NSFAS? How would you describe it in a corporate governance point of view?
Good evening, and also to your viewers and your listeners, and thank you for having us. The relationship that we enjoy, or rather that we have with the department and NSFAS or all its entities, is for the most part, it is a cordial one, and it is informed obviously by the principles of stakeholder engagement and consultation. We are a stakeholder that represents about 1.1 million students in the sector, so we are consulted based on the principles of stakeholder engagement.
There's a reason I ask this, because your statement says, as per these allegations, it is clear the minister has been running a money criminal ring led by the board chair, Dr. Ernest Khoza. You've further gone to say, whilst we note and acknowledge that these allegations must be tested within competent courts of the law and their veracity, a competency of our legal authorities to establish what has been evident for all to see is that the sector has already been facing criminal conditions. So on the one hand, you're calling for the minister to be fired because you say it's clear that he's been running a criminal ring of sorts. On the other hand, you talk about the allegations need to be tested. Which one is it, and where do you stand on this matter?
All right. So obviously, we have noted the allegations with the highest level of shock and disgust, number one. Number two, we appreciate that the allegations must be tested within a competent court of law, and up until such a point in time, they remain allegations. However, for us, the allegations represent or are indicative of the state of the sector. Hence, we said in our statement, over and above these allegations and this report, it was already the state of the sector was necessitating already that the president must act and remove the minister, and that the board must be dissolved. We even say in our statement, if you read it, that for the first time since the inception of NSFAS, we had almost 100,000 students going to write their NDA examinations without food, without toiletries, without sanitary products, some even without accommodation, some without the transport. That is the highest. Those are human right violations and atrocities that have been committed by NSFAS. No. And we have said, just by those that alone and the state of the sector, they must be fired. It is a pity. Well, it is not a pity, but the revelation in these reports, they only seek to vindicate our standing position that speaks to the credibility of and the ability and the capacity of the minister and the board chair to carry out their mandate. So
I want to understand something. You say, if I read your statement, I've read out to me what your statement says. That was your beginning sentence, and it was on the basis of the allegations by Outer. Now, as a stakeholder, which is a role you say you admittedly play, you yourselves bear the responsibility of ensuring accountability, transparency, and integrity. You're saying only now that the president must fire Blade Nzimande as a minister, but you say it bears evidence to what you've long believed, that the department and NSFAS are in shambles with regards to this matter. I'm just curious as to which point you arrived at this decision or point of view, and is it supported by what Outer is saying, or is it something that you've always known and have been championing for?
You can argue that it is the last straw that broke the camel's back, but if you trace our statements, which we share with you and we've come on this platform multiple times, There is nothing that we have raised in the statement that we have not been raising consistently, number one. Number two, the asking for the president to intervene is not the first time we have asked for it. I have been on this platform and I have reiterated in what we said in our statement a few months back, where we said that the president must intervene, we even said as it pertains to the political leadership of the sector, referring directly to the minister. So there's nothing new for us that we are saying there. So hence we are saying these allegations for us by Outer, it is some sort of a vindication. I'll bet you that they have not been tested. But
that's what I wanted to ask, Asive. It's a vindication on the one hand, but you still say you acknowledge that these allegations still need to be tested before a court of law. And I want to go further to what Outer itself has said, because I wish I could talk to them to get more clarity. On the one hand, they say they've handed over these recordings, or they are going to hand over these recordings to the SIU and other law enforcement agencies. But on the other hand, they also say these recordings have been handed over to the SIU, and it points to the date of 2022. But if you look at the sequence of events of how they explain it, they're saying, particularly with regards to the board chair, that these recordings actually took place just as the announcement of the suspension or letting go of the CEO was made. And that has to do with the service provider. So you have clarity, I'd imagine, given the fact that you feel very strongly that on the basis of this, the minister must go, that what happened when? And have you heard these recordings?
We have heard the recordings, and as I've also been saying also to the media, that we don't have the competency to determine their veracity, unfortunately. The only thing we have as evidence, and this must be made clear, the only thing that we base all our calls on is primarily and purely based on the experience of the student on the ground, particularly the poor and the working class. Okay. So for instance, let me give you an example, a wild example. If these allegations had come out, but we were of the view that the service that the students are receiving from NSFAS was clean, there were no issues, you know it, I know it, there were no complaints, maybe not would have treated them with suspicion. But the point here is that whatever, whether Outer had said it or not said, we will base all our decisions and calls purely, our litmus test and our yardstick is the experience of the student who is the poor and working class in institutions of higher learning. Okay. And I have told to you, I have demonstrated to you that we sat with 100,000 students that wrote their final examinations, their end-year examinations on hungry stomachs without places to sleep. So that on its own for us is sufficient to say that the minister must go. So there is nothing incongruent between the allegation, the experience of the students on the ground.
I just wanted to get clarity on how you are posturing this statement. Have you called for the CEO, Mr. Nonkoko, to come back?
No, we don't have. We don't have. There will be no reason for us to call for that for a few reasons. One, we are not the board. Number two, it's not as if under his leadership or the leadership of Ernest, Dr. Ernest, or even the current acting CFO, that things have been run in any manner that we could say that, it was under all of their tenure that these atrocities that we are speaking about happened. So there's no basis for us to say that he must be brought back. They said they had an independent investigation. The independent investigation found him to be culpable and liable. We said even before the investigation, after they had suspended him preliminary, that if an investigation proves that he was found wanting, we will support his removal. So there is no other evidence to the contrary that suggests that he must be brought back. The only thing we're bemoaning is that the acting CEO himself, the same investigation that found Andile Nogogo culpable, is the same report that said the current acting CEO now was the one who was adjudicating that these illegal tenders, and it is the acting CEO. It's one of the reasons why we're saying this.
We have run out of time, and I need to ask you this this question. You say in your statement, we are therefore without any equivocation calling on the president of the country to, if not at this damning report, but at the state of higher education, make the decision for once and for all to, and I quote, you decommission the now defunct and blunt blade because he's reached his sell-by date. But you're also saying, failure to do this, you will mobilize progressive forces. What do you mean by this? And is there a timeline that you are giving the president?
We are mobilizing them now as we speak, since, in fact, since even before the report, we had begun mobilizing them because we had given the president about a month ago, we had given him a deadline to act and he did not act, and the sector carries on to spiral into chaos. So we are carrying on to mobilize them. The nature of that mobilization and agitation, we do not know what nature will it take. We have given the president until the end of in this previous communication, until the end of January to act on these things, or else we will have no other choice but to ensure that our agitation and mobilization is in a nature such that not only the students of the poor and the working class are being barred from entering and accessing higher education, but that the higher education itself comes to a standstill up until the children of those that can afford and the children of the working class have equal access to education.
All right, thank you for your time. Asive Dlanjwa is the national spokesperson for SAUS, that is the South African Union of Students.